Hey everyone. So last time when we discussed the Boolean operators, we kind of glossed over them and we did not look at them in much depth. And that's what we will be doing in this video. So if you remember from last time, we have three Boolean operators, which are AND, OR, and I didn't mention this the last time, but NOT. So we discussed briefly about AND OR. So just a little bit of recap should be enough. And takes two values and they need to be both true for the and to return true, and if even one of them it turns out to be false, then we get the answer as false. Conversely, if we are using the OR operator and even if one of the values is true, we get back true, and only when both the values are false do we get output as false. So that's the basics of AND and OR. And the next thing that we also need to take care of is NOT. So the NOT operator just takes whatever value that you give it and it gives you the opposite of that, only in terms of true and false. So if I say NOT of false, it gives me true. If I say NOT of true, it gives me false, so on and so forth. You can do NOT, maybe 3 times as well. It doesn't matter, you can do any number of times, and you will get this will give value to true, I think. Yes, because the first time it gets to true, and the second time it again becomes false, and then the third time it becomes true again. So that's how the basics of these Boolean operators work. And what you can do with Boolean operators is actually mix them with other logic, and that's actually helpful when you're writing big programs and such. So say if I have a logic here that says 4 is less than 100 and 5 is equal to 25. Now, clearly the first one is true and the second one is a false statement. So if I evaluate them using the AND operator, I will get false because one of them was false. If I do the same condition with the OR Boolean operator, what I will get is true. Why? Because one of them was true and that was fair enough. Similarly, I can also do something like this. Since this is true, it returns to me false, and since this one was false, it returns true to me. So that's basics of the Boolean operators. And let's just see if, yeah, this would be better. Let's just implement these in a program that we can get a better understanding of what's happening. So this is just a basic program that I've written here that asks for the user's input, it asks for the user's name, and then it asks for the user's password, and it says if the name is lower, and it prints, hey, they're coder. Otherwise it prints, hey, you're not coder. So now what we can do is we can use the password that the user inputted as well to check and say, hey, and password equals, say the password should be equal to, let's just keep something snappy, something as Thanos. So we have the condition checking that the name.lower should be coder and the password should be Thanos. So if both the conditions do satisfy to be true, that's when this is executed. Otherwise, this won't be executed. This entire condition for the if statement would be evaluated to false. Why? Because of this and here, because if either one of them is false, the entire thing becomes false, and that's why the if condition doesn't execute and we go on to the else part. So if we save this and if we run it, it asks for the name. If I say coder and if I enter password and if I enter some gibberish, which is clearly not the password, it says you are not coder. So this is getting crowded, so I'll just rerun this again in a new window, and it asks me for my name. I enter coder, and then it asks for the password. If I enter Thanos, it says, hey there, coder. So that way you can take multiple inputs and maybe multiple values, variables, depends on your program really, and you can compare them sort of inside an and or and crazy logic and everything, and you can create wonders. Now, this is actually a bit more helpful and practical to implement when you are using if, else, if ladder, or if you call it else elif ladder, because Python has that, and everything else, and nested if, it's actually much more easier to implement and understand to use them in that concept. So that's the concept we'll be discussing next, and that will be in the next video. So see you there.